I know. You want to do the intro with me? Hello everyone and welcome to Bound in Prose, the booktube channel for those with very eclectic tastes in literature. I am your host Matt, and today I wanted to talk about the first major book that I knocked off of my 2024 TBR, and that is Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee. Now, this is the first time I've read anything from Min-Jin Lee, but I had seen reviews of this on Goodreads. Some of my favorite booktube reviewers had recently read this, and it really intrigued me. The cover really intrigued me. I am both a huge fan of Asian culture and history, as well as multi-generational family sagas. And so I knew I was going to get around to this eventually, and I figured this would be a great way to start off 2024. And I was both right and wrong. Now, to clarify and to get it out of the way early, in case you're sitting here wanting me to trash this book, I'm not going to trash this book. I absolutely loved Pachinko. Now, it is not the most uplifting novel, which is something that was not really surprising to me, but this book got pretty dark. But before I get into all that, let me just back up and kind of give you a brief synopsis. So, Pachinko follows this impoverished family as they immigrate from Korea to Japan. Now, historically, Koreans were not treated very well by the Japanese, and anybody that went over to Japan faced a lot of racism. Koreans were treated like dogs and weren't able to really integrate into society very well, and weren't able to hold prestigious jobs. There was a lot of people that wouldn't even hire Koreans at the time. So it's about this family that immigrates over to Japan, and it's about their struggles trying to make a living for themselves. So our main character, and once again, sorry if I mispronounce the names, but our main character is Sunya, and she grows up in a boarding house with her mother, and this boarding house has all of these people, and it's way overcrowded. But anyways, she meets a man named Hansa and falls in love with him and gets pregnant by him, and then finds out that he has a wife and 3 children in Japan, and she does not want to be his mistress, and so she says that she's not going to be with him. But one of the men that shows up to the boarding house is a minister, a Christian minister, and because they take care of him while he has tuberculosis, he decides that he wants to marry Sunya and take care of her and this child, and give the child his name, and give this child some sort of hope for being raised by 2 parents and being brought up well. And so they immigrate to Japan, and that's where the story starts. So they immigrate to Japan, like I have said a couple times now. But anyways, they get over there and they live with the minister's brother and his wife. And they end up having this child whose name is Noah, and then she and the minister end up having their own child. And a lot of the book follows these 2 children and then their offspring. So we do cover a few generations in this book, but I would say that Sunya is the main character, and most of the story is about her struggles and how her decision to marry this minister and integrate into Japan affects generations down the line, which is really kind of interesting, because one of the things that this book has is Christian undertones in a lot of ways. I wouldn't say that the theme of it is religious, but obviously since the minister is Christian, there is a lot of kind of callbacks and references to biblical figures. So, like I said, one of the children's name is Noah. The other is Mozatsu, and what I am imagining is that is like sort of a Japanese version of Moses. I could be totally wrong about that. And then Mozatsu and his wife have a child, and they name him Solomon. And the main character, Sunja, actually doesn't even know that she ever truly believes in God, but she supports her husband. She's thankful to her husband. She's always kind of open to the idea. Anyways. So the name of the book, Pachinko, I actually did not know what that was a reference to. And so I looked it up kind of when I had first started reading it. And Pachinko is like a gambling game that is very popular in Japan, where there's a lot of metal balls. It's kind of like Plinko, from what I kind of understand. And so you get like a tray of metal balls, and they fall down this game, and they hit all these pegs and stuff. And then if they fall into like the proper holes, you can win prizes. And it still remains a like fairly popular way to gamble in Japan to this day. And so the title of the book comes from the fact that the family gets involved. Mozatsu in particular gets involved in a pachinko parlor, and he ends up running it. And once they get into pachinko, even though it is kind of a underground, seedy sort of business, that's when they finally start to make like a decent living for themselves. And there are other aspects to the title and how Pachinko plays into the storyline towards the ending that I will not spoil, but suffice it to say that this is the perfect title for this book. So I'm going to try not to do as much of a full summary as I usually do. Sometimes I look back on my videos, I'm like, kind of annoyed with how much I just talk about what the storyline is. So to me, the theme of this book is that suffering must be endured. Now, that is very basic, and I don't think saying like suffering must be endured necessarily means that you just put up with it and throw your hands up and surrender to it. A lot of this book is about overcoming the adversity in your life, and that a lot of life, especially for these characters in this time period, suffering was just a part of life. That was their station, and there was no way to really like get very far above that and to really overcome it. I mean, they do their best and they make a decent life for themselves. But yeah, and especially our main character, Sunja, talks about how this is specifically true for women at the time. Women, their lot in life is to suffer. And she says this, and her mother told her that. And I think while she might accept that and believe that to be a truth of the world and her station in life at the time, our main character is a fighter, and she takes care of this family. She and her sister-in-law, I mean, they make kimchi, and they go sell kimchi on the streets, and they try to make candies, and they get in with a restaurant owner, and yeah, they take care of the minister's brother whenever he gets sick towards the end of the book, and whenever he's injured, and they help raise the kids. And I mean, it's just about the strength of these women. While I feel like saying that suffering must be endured, being the theme of the book, can be sort of a downer, and there are plenty of moments in this book that are soul-crushing almost. I think that in a way we can find solace in the fact that, yes, suffering is a part of life, but we can't give up. We have to keep going, and we never know what is around the corner, and the blessings that we can find, and the advantages that we can gain, and benefits of working through and pushing through difficulties. I found the plot of Pachinko to be engaging throughout. whenever I started this book, I remembered in one of my earlier videos, I said I wanted to be much more critical of what I give 5 stars. And so for a long time in this book, I said, this is going to be a 4-star book. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with 4 stars. 4 stars is an excellent rating. But I'm probably going to end up settling on 4 stars for this. And then by the time I got to the ending, I said, there's no way I can. I can't. And I think that's just because one of the things I feel like Min Jin Lee did so well in this book was bring these characters to life. It's something I have talked about, like whenever I discussed A Little Life in my top 10 video. These characters were real people to me. And I cared about all of them, at least for some of the time. Yeah, and their heartbreak kind of became my heartbreak in a lot of places. I know this is not a vlog video, but I'm going to include some clips here of some of my reactions while reading this book.
I'm on page 340 of Pachinko, and I'm so mad, but also very invested, so that's a good thing.
You are kidding me.
I'm at my parents' house, that's why there's like different wallpaper. But anyways, this book is like intent on devastating me.
So yeah, this book hurt me a few times, and I was very frustrated at points, and you just think, gosh, how much more can these characters go through? And yeah, I don't mind that as long as it's done well, and I feel like it was done very well here. And you know, life is not always rainbow and roses. So but yeah, I never felt like it strayed into like A Little Life territory, where A Little Life I can see where people start to feel like, okay, I don't buy it anymore. There's no way this one person could endure all of this. I didn't feel like that was the case with Pachinko. I felt like it was very realistic. I felt like these people just had very difficult lives, and some of the turn of events, you know, were still realistic. I mean, that's what could happen, but it definitely would have been for people that seem to be fairly unlucky in life. Okay, so minor spoilers ahead. So I thought that every character had their wonderful qualities and then their frustrating qualities to varying degrees. Our main character, I felt like I was on her side for most of it. I was on her side for most of the book, and I never really felt like I'm tired of this main character. Some of the side characters a little bit more so. The minister's brother kind of started to frustrate me, but I understand. It was earlier in the century, and he's a man that wants to be able to provide for the family. He does not want his wife or the women to go out and have like real jobs, making money. He wants them to like stay at home and be safe and do what women are supposed to do. And while I obviously don't agree with that ideology, I understand where he was coming from given the time. But it got to the point where I was really frustrated with him, because I was like, dude, y'all have no money. Like, you're sick. Everybody's dying. Like, let them make kimchi for the restaurant. Like, deal with it. But so he got a little frustrating, and then it got a little bit better as the story went on. Hansu, and I'm sorry, I called him Hansa earlier. Hansu, the man that Sunja fell in love with at the beginning, was a really intriguing character to me. And they kind of keep his background and his motives and what he does pretty gray for most of the novel. And so people will say that he's so rich because he's a Yakuza boss. And, even though, I mean, he's not the most upstanding person, he always seems like he's trying to help Sunja, and he's trying to take care of his child Noah and wants to do that and get Noah a really good education. And he's always coming and checking in on Sunja. He's the one that arranges for them to make kimchi in the restaurant. And I know I'm sitting here just kind of going through the story. But anyways, he was really interesting to me. And I kind of felt like I was on his side. But then there is a brutal scene between him and an escort. Later in the book where I was kind of shocked. I was like, where did that come from? And yeah, I was like, I can't read for this man anymore. Wow. And so there was that. Muzatsu is a really good character. I was on his side for most of the book. His son Solomon was a really interesting character. I was really bummed out with the way that Solomon's story ended, but it makes sense in the context of the book. It makes sense with the title, and it makes sense with the theme that suffering must be endured, and it makes sense with some of the motifs that, the Koreans are just basically unable to get over their station in life. They're always going to be treated poorly, and they're always going to be viewed as lesser than the Japanese citizens. So it made sense. I didn't necessarily like that that's how it ended, but like I said, life is not all sunshine and roses. So, and then we have the character of Noah, Hansu's illegitimate son, who his story was also, it had its ups and downs, and I'm not gonna get into spoilers for that, but I felt so bad for this character. You're rooting for him, and then some things occur, and yeah, he is unable to reconcile his father being a Yakuza. And that's all I'll say about that. So without rambling on for too much longer, Pachinko by Minjin Lee. I ended up giving it 5 stars. On Goodreads, I think that if it was a 10-star rating, I probably would have given this like an 8, 8.5, somewhere in there. And if it was, you could do 0.5s on Goodreads, I'd probably give this a 4.5. I mean, it's so close for me. Yeah, it doesn't quite reach the level of East of Eden or the Thorn Birds for me. But yes, I love these multi-generational family sagas. And I felt like this in a lot of ways, sorry, just random aside, I felt like this in a lot of ways read like the Asian Grapes of Wrath. And I love that book as well, but it also, for me, is not as good as East of Eden. But anyways, yes, Pachinko by Minjin Lee. If you are a fan of these kinds of books, if you like the stories of families and seeing their children and their children's children and that kind of deal, and if you are not afraid of topics that can get pretty unflinching and dark, then I would say go ahead and pick up Pachinko. It looks really big, but it's not even 500 pages, and so it didn't take me too terribly long to get through it. That, and I was also just so sucked in that I had no issue sitting down and reading. And I was visiting my parents, as you saw in one of the clips, and they wanted to watch a TV show, and I was like, I've got 2 more pages, and I've got to finish. So anyway, so they started the show, and I was like, nope, I'm finishing this book right now. So anyways, yeah, so Pachinko by Minjin Lee. Highly recommend. So that's going to do it for this week, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. Subscriber count is going up, and I'm getting more engagement and likes, and I so appreciate you. I know maybe I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Maybe I drone on a little bit. but this is just how I talk about books at the time, and I'm just so happy to be able to share my thoughts and to read the comments. So thank you once again. I will be back really soon. I'm almost done with my next book. So the way I'm doing things right now is I have a book that I'm reading on reading the physical copy of it, and then I have a book that I'm listening to on audio because I am driving all over Texas, it feels like. So next we're going to do a book that is pretty different from what I have done so far. Maybe not so much, but yeah. So next we are going to be talking about The Visitation by Frank Peretti and why I struggle with Christian literature. So I hope that you will join me for that, and thank you so much. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. I will try to answer anybody who wants to chit chat back at me about books. And so yeah, y'all have a great one. Happy reading, and I will see you soon. What did you think?